in the midst of the pandemic, and this goes to the taxpayer issue, in the midst of the pandemic, both Republicans and Democrats said on a federal level that we needed to spend an enormous amount of money to keep people employed during this period. Specifically, we needed to give money to the airlines because they were a benefit to society. They were an economic engine. And here we are now saying, well, actually, you know, that was a federal issue. Now, actually, this issue of taking the vaccine, which is clearly, I think, good for society overall, it's actually not, it's not a federal issue at all. Why does that make sense?
No, but it doesn't make sense. It actually should be a federal issue. You know, take you back to the 1950s. Dwight Eisenhower, a five-star general in the office of the presidency, a tremendous amount of trust after the war. Please go get the polio vaccination. There was no problem there. You want to talk about mandates. After the Pearl Harbor invasion, we had a draft mandate. You gave up your liberty to go fight for the country to protect ourselves. And so the great irony about our personal freedom, it's actually a collective. We need each other to be free. If we have a foreign invader, we have to team up together. If we have an invisible organism, the coronavirus, right, we have to team up together and take that jab to protect each other. But we don't have the trust and confidence in the establishment anymore, Andrew. That's the unfortunate thing. We have to figure out a way to rebuild that.
The reason for that is political, it appears to me. And for reasons that are inexplicable, I'm unsure why it's not considered patriotic, if you will, to take the vaccine, and why that hasn't permeated, if you will, a certain part of the political base on the right.
Well, listen, President Trump, with Operation Warp Speed, he helped to put the vaccine together. He told his constituents that he himself took the vaccine, and they booed him on stage. There's a group of those people that are upset with President Trump for actually pushing the vaccine through. And so, Andrew, that's the issue. There's 20 to 25% of the people that have disaffected from the establishment. And most of these people, frankly, they went from a generation of economically aspirational people in the blue-collar areas to economically desperational. They're upset. They're angry about that. And so, therefore, they've lost trust in a lot of different categories.
What would you
got to rebuild that if we want to put things.
What would you do to change this dynamic?
Well, I think it's a massive,
one's a longer-term issue than another. I mean, that's the other complicating part.
Step one, if you're a responsible corporate executive, you have to force a vaccine mandate on your employees. If they want to leave, that's fine. They did that out here at the hospital on Long Island. Northwell lost 1,400 people. Step two, we have to have a massive education program to wipe out the disinformation that's going on out there. Step three, call Mark Zuckerberg and tell him to knock it off with all this disinformation on Facebook. Those are the three things I would do immediately, and you would see a big increase in these vaccines. We can end this pandemic if everybody decided to get vaccinated. That's better for freedom and better for economic growth. Tell Governor Abbott that the next time he's on your show, Andrew.
Hey, Anthony, we had Scott Gottlieb on earlier this morning, and he pointed out something that he's been giving a lot of thought to that I hadn't really connected the dots yet. All of this politicization of the COVID vaccine is very likely going to have ripple impacts, because now there are a certain set of people who are not going to want to get vaccinated simply because they're being told to by a president they didn't vote for and don't support. And now they're going to start rethinking it when it comes to other vaccines, too, things that we've kind of taken for granted, everything from flu shots to measles, mumps, rubella. Things that are pretty common. He's worried that over the next several years, you may see a decline in effectiveness of vaccines if people stop taking some of those other vaccines as well, if this kind of spreads from there. I don't know how to address that.
Well, listen, I talked to Dr. Gottlieb about that at the SALT conference. The great irony is we've had 120 years of successful vaccination programs that has led to an elongation of life, Becky. And so a result of which there's a lot of complacency in there. It's the same way after a nation goes through a war, they do not want war. 100 years goes by and they start to rattle the sabers again. And so this is an information campaign and this is an education campaign. And he's right. If we don't get ahead of this thing, and this is why I am imploring every corporation in America, every small business, please get your employees vaccinated, push the envelope. If it comes from the president, I understand the soreness there because of the current political environment, but we can do this at the private level. We can do this as entrepreneurs to push this. Andrew and I had this conversation at the SALT conference. Pushing that mandate allowed us to have a 2,400-person conference in safety. And we even had Dr. Scott Gottlieb there telling people, hey, this is a COVID-free or a COVID-friendly environment, or whatever the right words are to use. We can do that together. It leads to more economic growth and more freedom. But I think he's right. If we don't start now and stop this disinformation, you're going to end up with a bigger disaster on your hands with more and more vaccines.